right, folks, welcome to Alchemy's in the Lab. This is our session number 1 of 2025, and we're going to kick it off strong with a great topic. I'm really excited. We're changing the format just a little this year. We're going to do, on average, about one a month. So if you're new to this, we run these every month. We try to focus on fun topics, or we feature cool vendors that we love, and we talk about things that hopefully you're interested in. So here we are. We're going to talk about Microsoft today. We're going to talk about this whole thing around EA and the EA shakeup. And I got a great guy on the phone. And if you don't know me, my name is Pete Downing. I'm the host, and I run these once a month. But hey, it's better to feature smarter people than me. So on today's call, we have Kyle. Hey, Kyle, give yourself a quick intro and tell us a little bit about yourself, your experience with Microsoft, and why you love Alchemy.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Pete. I appreciate the introduction. As Pete mentioned, everybody, my name is Kyle Timm. I am the Microsoft Program Manager here at Alchemy, and one of my remits in this role is to help organizations navigate all of the complexities that Microsoft licensing and operations brings to your organizations. And so a little bit about me, I'm a new addition to the Alchemy team, been with the organization about 2.5 months. Prior to that, I spent the previous 15-ish years spread across experience directly at Microsoft, supporting healthcare organizations, as well as leading a group of roughly 30 Microsoft licensing dedicated specialists that did nothing but help customers navigate the EA conversation, the MPSA conversation all day, every day, at one of the big resellers in the market. So one of the reasons that I decided to join the Alchemy team and help organizations navigate is the topic that we're going to be discussing today, and really working to collaborate with organizations to come to the best possible outcome as Microsoft is continuing to kind of move the goalpost and shift the landscape.
That's awesome. Great introduction. And it's great to have you on today. And guys, this guy is an expert. And that's why I love having folks on to talk about the various topics we do. And really quickly, if you don't know who Alchemy Technology Group is, we're a national reseller that spans all 50 states, and we've been around since 2016, and we have over 1,000 clients, growing very fastly. 150 plus alchemists by end of year will be over 200. We have 27 various industry awards, and we cover all 50 states. But one of the things I love about Alchemy, it's plain and simple. We hire the best talent. Kyle, as an example, but anybody you interact with, you're going to find out we know the industry inside and out. Yes, I'm a marketing guy, but I've been in this industry for 30 years. I worked at various companies across the industry. We partner with best of breed technology. It's not about getting a line card filled with every vendor. It's about providing the best solutions to you based on each category. And then we work on building trust with you, the client.
All right, perfect. And Pete, just to confirm, we have the agenda slide up.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I can see.
All right, perfect. So everybody, really thank you for taking time out of your guys' busy days to hop on with us and review some of the changes that are happening in the Microsoft ecosystem from a volume licensing perspective. So what we're going to cover today is about 10 to 15 slides covering a number of different topics, starting with some key takeaways. Then we'll do a little bit deeper dive into where we're at in this evolution that Microsoft is going through, and kind of some considerations for you guys as you are navigating your next upcoming renewal cycle. We'll talk about how Alchemy approaches supporting organizations through this change, and then we'll finish up with any questions that the group has, as well as passing it back over to Pete to cover some of the content related to the mastermind session that he referenced. So as we go through today, there are going to be a lot of terms, a lot of acronyms, a lot of information shared, just because that's Microsoft at its finest. But as you are listening and taking in the information, there are a couple of key things that I want, each of you guys to walk away with today. And those are gain a high-level understanding of the Microsoft evolution and the current Microsoft priority. Secondly, we want to equip you all with strategies to consider as you plan for your next upcoming renewal. And then we want you to have a full understanding of how Alchemy can help your organization achieve the best outcome, not only from a cost perspective, but also from an ease of management perspective, a support perspective, and a return on investment perspective. So if I do my job today, you guys will all walk away with a very good understanding of those three things. So we're going to go ahead and start out by talking about some exciting changes within the Microsoft landscape. And I know most of you guys are probably thinking the word exciting and the word Microsoft and licensing do not belong in the same sentence ever. But really, when we think about what Microsoft has been going through for the past few years and really buckling down on these changes today, things are pretty drastically changing. Right. And so it is a bit exciting having to navigate some new challenges, having to figure out how to best partner with Microsoft, with your Microsoft partner, and then how to best utilize all of the technology that Microsoft makes available. So really, when we think about what's been going on for the last 6 or 7 years, starting with the introduction of CSP, is a continuous story of evolution. And what I mean by that is Microsoft has been going through a process to evolve the way with which they engage with customers. And that's both from a systems and tooling perspective, but also from a transaction vehicle perspective. Okay. So on the left-hand side of the screen, you have their legacy approach, right? You have legacy programs, you have the enterprise agreement, Select Plus, MPSA, Open Value, CSP, WebDirect. And if you think back, each of those programs had their own unique set of offerings, meaning that not every product was available to every customer. And the products that you were enabled to purchase were dictated by the program through which you licensed. Each of these programs also had multiple different price levels with differing calculations and differing requirements. And so it was really challenging for organizations to kind of navigate what their pricing was going to be, whether or not they're meeting the requirements of the agreement, and how to best transact. And so as Microsoft has gone through this evolution, they're really doing two things. Like I said earlier, they are updating their back-end systems to allow for a much more digitized transaction model, where no longer when you sign an agreement does it have to go to an operations center in Reno, Nevada, where a person physically prints it out, reviews it, and then processes it, right? So they're automating it, making it a little bit easier to work with them from a contracting perspective. But they're also moving into a model that is designed to support subscription-based licensing, right? So when you think about their legacy models, yes, the EA absolutely allows for you to purchase and leverage online services, M365, O365, enterprise mobility and security. But the structure of that agreement was really based on figuring out or really based on transacting and managing perpetual on-premise licensing, and the capability needed to support online services was retrofitted on top of that. And so as they move into the new motion on the right-hand side, what we will see is a simplified strategy from a licensing perspective, at least from a transaction perspective, given the number of options that will be available. Okay, so in this new modern approach on the right-hand side of your screen, what you will see is there are far less boxes, right? So with this change, Microsoft is introducing a singular agreement that every organization will sign, regardless of industry, regardless of segment, regardless of size. And that's called the Microsoft Customer Agreement, or MCA. And within that MCA, up at the top, you'll notice that there will be a common offer catalog that is powered by their new commerce or modern commerce engine. Okay, so when we think about it, all of the products will be available for every organization to leverage. And they will all be priced kind of at a consistent price level so that it is much more straightforward for organizations to navigate. Now, as you think about the legacy offers and the pricing waterfalls being dictated based on volume in this new motion, the pricing structure is going to be more based on the duration of your commitment on your subscription SKUs. So the easiest example of this is really a reserved instance where you can go into Azure and you can buy a D12 VM and pay $100 per month on pay-as-you-go rates. Or you can look at doing a reserved instance for 1 year, which will provide you a discount level. Or you can look at doing a reserved instance for 3 years, providing even a deeper discount. So they're really looking at a motion where the duration of your commitment is going to be the kind of the new version of volume pricing, so to speak. And within this model, the piece that's going to dictate the option that you select is really going to be based on a couple of different things. Number one, the complexity of your agreement, but number two, the relationship that you want to have with a partner and or your Microsoft account team. So if we look at the dark blue boxes towards the bottom, there are going to be 3 paths for organizations to transact Microsoft in the future. The self-service all the way on the right is very similar to the web direct motion today, where you go to Microsoft.com or from within your M365 admin console, you are provisioning those services with no assistance from a partner or from Microsoft. Then in the middle, for organizations who want a deep relationship and deep levels of support with the partner community, the CSP model that exists today will continue to be the hero motion. And then on the far left, as we think about kind of what would be the most comparable to an enterprise agreement option in this new commerce world, we're really talking about a Microsoft customer agreement for enterprise, or MCA-E, which is that Microsoft assisted option. So I know that was a lot of stuff in that slide and a lot of kind of jargon related to how Microsoft does business. But as I think about these changes, and the reason that I say we're in exciting times with Microsoft is the scope and the scale of the evolution that they're going through and the announcements that they made in late 2024 really represent an inflection point with Microsoft that we haven't seen since the introduction of the EA 30 years ago, or the true pivot from license and software assurance into the subscription model with the Microsoft 365 suites. And so to put a little bit more of a layman's lens on the changes, really, I think about them as kind of moving from the medieval times, which is legacy, into the modern age. Okay, so when we think about the medieval times, we are talking about on-premise technology solutions, perpetual licensing, very transaction-focused business where enterprise agreement and that Office Pro Plus Enterprise Cal suite with Windows was the king, and having all of those different purchasing options that we talked about on the previous slide. Well, over the course of about the past 3 years, we've kind of entered into this renaissance period where we're living in a mixed world or a split world where organizations have legacy volume licensing contracts to consider, legacy licensing models to consider, but also have some of the new capabilities available for them. And so in this kind of transition period, we really saw Microsoft take an intense shift to cloud solutions, focusing more on consumption and utilization, reimagining what their volume licensing programs look like with the introduction of CSP, and the initial phases of retirement of those legacy programs. We saw open licensing being retired a couple of years ago. And one of the things that we'll talk about in a couple of slides is the full retirement of those legacy volume licensing programs and kind of some steps that Microsoft has been taking to move in that direction. And where we sit today is really in that kind of transition period between the Renaissance age or Renaissance time and the modern age. And in that modern age, that's where we are going to be, in what we talked about, full retirement of the legacy programs, pricing based on the duration of commitment versus the volume of commitment, and prioritizing partner relationships based not on support of a transaction, but being much more integrated into your environment as a true partner through collaboration and experience of understanding what your business outcomes represent to your organization. So to take a little bit of a step back, as you guys are considering all of these changes, it's also important to understand kind of where Microsoft is focused today so that you can have an educated conversation with your Microsoft account team as they come to start discussing the renewal cycle and the options that are available. So when we think about Microsoft's technology, it obviously spans nearly every area of the IT environment. And so what they've done, what they've done in 2025 is they've really broken out their solution practices into these 6 areas. So as you're having conversations with your Microsoft account team and all of the specialists that they bring to bear, right, it's important to consider the technologies that you guys are leveraging today, but also are included in your technology roadmap for moving forward, and making sure that we're engaging with them in a way that's meaningful and brings the correct resources for your organization and those needs. So we've got modern work, which is all of your Office 365, M365 suites. We've got security, which kind of spans the user space with the Defender capabilities, the data compliance capabilities, the identity capabilities with Sentinel, and some of the Azure security related pieces. Then we finally have BizApps, which is the Dynamics 365 motions, as well as those Power Platform solutions. So thinking about Power BI, Fabric, as you are looking at data security, especially with all of the AI initiatives that organizations have. And then on the bottom row, we have cloud infrastructure, data and AI, and digital and app innovation. And so within those areas, Microsoft is going to be hyper-focused on conversations that help organizations do a couple of different things in preparing for success in the future. Number one is going to be realizing the value of Copilot, right? We all understand what's happening in the environment from an AI perspective, and Copilot is becoming Microsoft's hero motion to help organizations realize the value of AI in your users' everyday world. The second is going to be, how are you winning in the industry, right? What is your differentiator, and how can Microsoft help from an AI readiness and use case definition perspective? The third priority for Microsoft is going to be securing that cybersecurity foundation, right? Making sure that every organization is as secure as possible, leveraging the technology that Microsoft brings to bear. And then the two on the far right are really, really kind of Microsoft's traditional core workloads, right? It's moving to M365 and taking advantage of all of those productivity suite features. And then finally, thinking about things from a modernization perspective and how can we leverage cloud to help increase productivity and drive costs down. So as we think about engaging with Microsoft, as you approach your renewal cycle, there are a couple of different things that have recently been announced that will kind of put the reality of the changes and the evolution at the forefront of everybody's mind. Okay, so there were a couple of announcements that were made at the end of 2024 relating to some changes that are the first steps in that true kind of foundational retirement of the legacy programs, moving to the new model. So what does it really mean for you? So what is actually happening with these couple of announcements is a phased approach to the retirement of the EA. Policy from Microsoft will dictate the renewal options and the timelines. And I anticipate this change happening, over the course of a 3 to 5 year period, just given how complex some of the agreements in the market are, as well as the EA being a 3-year term. So every new enrollment that gets signed today, extends that life cycle for an additional 3 years. The first EAs that will be impacted by policy, meaning that they are not allowed to renew into EA, are level A EA customers that have only cloud or only online services on their agreement. As you think about that, where software assurance comes into play, there are some nuances there because CSP, as an example, does not enable software assurance purchases. It is a subscription-first program. And so as you're having conversations with your Microsoft account team, understanding what your options by policy are will be helpful as you explore the different scenarios that could become available for you as you're renewing. The next thing that's happening is there will be different approaches across the different Microsoft segments. So in the enterprise space, think those organizations that are 5,000 seats and above. Microsoft is going to continue to lead with EA and MCA-E as those direct motions because of the complexity that exists within most of those contracts. In the SMC, so the mid-market space and SMB, that's where we're going to see Microsoft really lean into the partner community and lead with that transition from legacy EA into CSP and MCA-E. And so over time, what we will see is that policy broaden wider and wider and wider until no customers are enabled to renew their EA platform and must transition into that either MCA-E model, the CSP model, or the self-service model. The other thing that's happening is a continued shift to align strategies and benefits to cloud consumption. Right? So we're seeing this with CSP being a subscription-first program with the ability to procure perpetual licenses, but license only, and moving a lot of the benefits that were associated with software assurance in the past to that subscription-based model. And so as we continue to see Microsoft move more and more to this subscription-first model, we will see the benefits that are available, things like Azure hybrid use benefits, continue to expand across those subscription licenses. And then the final thing that's happening is, as we talked about at the beginning, one of the reasons or one of the benefits to Microsoft evolving into this new modern commerce platform is the singular pricing catalog and the singular product catalog for every organization. And the next step that they're taking with that piece is to level the pricing strategy across all of the motions, whether it be MCA-E, Web Direct, or self-service, or CSP. And the change that's happening actually next week is with the annual term monthly billing option for user subscription licenses, we will see a 5% price increase across all three of those options. Okay. So as you're thinking about all of the information that we've shared today and how it's going to impact your organization, we firmly believe and we firmly realize that the impact that these changes are going to have are going to vary wildly across organizations, depending on where you're at today, depending on your technology mix, depending on your technology roadmap. And so starting with kind of getting a lay of the land of what you have in your current license estate is priority number one. Understanding and evaluating where you're coming from will help you apply the information about where Microsoft is going to start to lay the framework for the best possible outcome for your organization. Secondly, start to consider and ask yourself the question, where do I sit from a Microsoft sales support perspective? Which of those segments am I in? Am I an enterprise customer? Am I an SMC or SMB customer? Because that's going to dictate kind of the partnership that you have with Microsoft, but also the options that will be available for you as you work your way through that renewal cycle. And then as you are moving to this modern motion, it's really important that we are thinking through how are we currently managing our license allocation and license provisioning today, but also how are we managing the finances of our current agreement? When we think about enterprise agreement, right, the ability to lock in for 3 years and only have to add licenses and have a financial event once every 12 months is very different from the really operating expense model in CSP and in MCA-E, where you can potentially be billed on a monthly basis and choose to mix and match your licensing to give you additional flexibility. So understanding how you guys are going to manage that change is an important concept to make sure that everybody within your organizations is kind of in lockstep on. Focus on business outcomes, right? The key with Microsoft and in the EA, right, we saw them seed a lot of technologies, right? Here's the new latest and greatest widget. We'll go ahead and give you 5 copies of that for free, and we will, kind of work with you to evaluate that technology over the course of your agreement. In these new models, it becomes very, very painful to pay for shelfware, i.e., subscriptions that aren't being utilized, right? And so we need to really be thoughtful about aligning your technology roadmap with your highest priority objectives. It is a far different scenario than it used to be, where you're price locking for 3 years. And now in this new motion, especially within CSP, having the opportunity to really balance your flexibility and cost and technology needs allows you to take a step back and really focus on what technology do I need to meet my business objectives. And then finally, identify potential areas of consolidation and optimization, right? And so when we think about Microsoft, we've talked about it a little bit already. It touches every aspect of your IT environment. And so understanding the technology that Microsoft brings to bear, but also what are the comparable technologies and the comparable investments that you've made is a really important concept as Microsoft continues to bundle more and more technology into single licenses. And having that evaluation of when do I need the technology? Do I have to displace a third-party technology? All becomes more important than it ever has been before. So that's the end of the Microsoft section. Pete, I'm going to pause here. Any questions from the crew?
Yeah, we we got some great questions. So I'll kind of start with the top one. It came in right away. So the question is, hey, we're in year one of a 3-year EA agreement. Will we be affected by the upcoming changes during the 3-year agreement?
Yeah, really, really great question. So no impact for organizations during their current agreement term. Really what we're talking about here is the evolution of options as we're exploring the renewal cycles of those agreements.
Cool. All right. So then the next question that came in, simple one, it said, would that include GCC? So I'm thinking he's talking about GCC in general and encompass that.
Good question. So the way that Microsoft typically is going to roll out changes is they're going to start with a narrow focus from a policy standpoint on commercial organizations. Just because as we think about public sector and government and education and nonprofit types of contracts, there are some operational, contractual, and technology nuances that make it a little bit more challenging and typically take more development. So to answer the question about GCC in particular, I would love to have a deeper conversation around that environment and that agreement in particular, just to understand, do we have GCC services on a commercial agreement, or do we have GCC services on a public sector, state and local government contract? But as you think about the options, certainly the fact that Microsoft is not dictating via policy to those kind of industry specific organizations that they have to make the move, you can still evaluate all of the future options in case one of those better meets your needs.
Awesome. All right. And then another kind of deeper question. So what if we have a ACC agreement? How is that going to be affected along with our regular EA? So far, they haven't mentioned much of what you're sharing here. We've had conversations in the past week. I think they're talking about Microsoft. So
Yeah,
let you run with that one.
For sure. So for the broader group, the acronym MACC stands for Microsoft Azure Commit to Consume. So basically, an organization is saying, I am going to consume X amount of Azure dollars over the course of Y period of time. We have actually already seen Microsoft move the majority of those MAC commitments into the MCA-E model. If they have not spoken to you about that yet, I'm sure they will. But the requirement there, I think, will be more based on the complexity and the customization of the agreement, and whether or not the new backend systems and tools can support those customizations and kind of complexities of the agreement. But happy to dive deeper into that one as well.
Cool. Well, those are the 3 questions we got. And audience, hey, feel free to ask any and all questions, and we will try to answer them all.
Excellent. Well, that is actually a fairly good segue into how does Alchemy think about these shifts? How does Alchemy think about the challenges that we're hearing from organizations, and then how do we approach supporting and solving for those challenges? And as we dive in here, the key thing to remember is that Microsoft has never been more important to the technology stack, but it has also never been more complicated to navigate, right? As we live between both of these kind of medieval times or the Renaissance period and the modern times, as we talked about, the number of options and the complexity of options can be very overwhelming. And especially as we think about the impact that Microsoft has across the entirety of the technology stack. And so the things that we're hearing from organizations as they're going through this shift and evaluating their options come renewal time are these 4 things kind of stand out. The significant evolution that Microsoft is going through is creating a lot of unfamiliar motions where new processes are having to be defined, new license allocation, new invoice management motions have to be defined. And so having somebody that can help kind of navigate what that will look like is very important to organizations. The second one is the continuous and rapid pace of change required to kind of stay up to date, right? Like I said earlier, it is no longer the days of you install Office Pro Plus 2010 and 5 years later you install Office Pro Plus 2016, right? The way that Microsoft is releasing new features, new functionality, it really requires ongoing diligence. And so the partnership that you have must also evolve away from supporting those kind of one-time financial events to being much more collaborative and being much more of a true partnership, if I could. The third challenge that we're hearing most from organizations is that the balancing act is becoming harder, right? In the old school days, it was, how do I make sure I'm in an okay position from an audit standpoint? And how do I not spend too much money on technology that I'm not going to be leveraging? In this new world, you have to balance your technology needs, your cost, your risk, and your flexibility. And that becomes more challenging than it has ever been before because of things like tenant-wide services, where if you enable one license of M365 E5, all of a sudden you have all of these new capabilities that can't be scoped down and restricted only to licensed users. So balancing the cost, flexibility, and technology needs of E5 along with that compliance risk scenario is becoming more and more challenging for organizations. And then finally, the evolution of AI is creating new data and security challenges, which I'm sure everyone on this call is familiar with and is near and dear to your hearts. And so when we think about a partnership and what organizations are telling us, the nature of that partnership must change to accommodate this new level of complexity and new interconnected subscription-based solution offer. right? You need ongoing proactive communication with a partner to ensure that you're able to navigate all of the nuances of the tech suites against your business objectives, against cost, against flexibility, and against risk. So the way that we think about solving for these challenges starts with the mindset that the right approach and the right technology solutions are going to be different depending on the needs of every single organization. So there is no longer a, blanket EA management plan, right? Every organization is going to have a different mix of duration of licenses that require different levels of support. Different user groups within the organization are going to have different technologies, and the technology available is just going to become more and more robust. And so the way that we approach helping organizations navigate all of this is really by providing an end-to-end collaboration and support throughout that entirety of the technology journey. We don't want to engage just at an EA true-up, right? We want to provide deep subject matter expertise with industry best knowledge and experience for really whatever an organization is looking at evaluating and wherever you're at in this new kind of cycle subscription-based management. We want to look at it from a more holistic lens, right? Yes, we have Microsoft expertise with myself and my counterpart, Mark Wall, on the technical side of the house, but we all know that there are tons and tons of solutions out there that could potentially meet your business objectives and meet your organization's needs. And so I'll dive into this a little bit deeper on the next slide with respect to how we think about structuring our support. But really, it is more from a technology standpoint than it is a manufacturer standpoint to ensure that organizations are getting the best possible mix of technology, price, risk, security. And then obviously the last piece here is providing proactive and consistent engagement, kind of going back to that first bullet of end-to-end collaboration, right? We want to be along with your organization and your teams, helping evaluate those technology needs as we think about not only the renewals, but also, thinking about shorter term subscription needs and technology needs, and making sure that we're balancing all of these aspects of a subscription-based world that provides a new level of flexibility that has not existed before. And I think we have come to my final slide before I pass it back over to Pete to talk a little bit about our mastermind session. But when we think about a partnership from a Microsoft standpoint, it really needs to be a connected partnership. And what I mean by that is organizations need a support structure that helps them navigate all the way from assessing technology needs, getting advice on how a specific technology can interact and operate within the specifics of your environment, and then executing on that and getting the return on investment. And so, like I mentioned, we think about our Microsoft practice here at Alchemy a little bit differently than I think a lot of organizations are used to. We don't necessarily have a dedicated focus or a dedicated practice to Microsoft because it spans everything. And so our practice is Microsoft expertise on the front end, helping identify business objectives with your organization, and then bringing to bear true technologists and true levels of expertise within that given area. So cybersecurity, data analytics, cloud infrastructure, digital workspace, application development, and artificial intelligence. And within each of these areas, that's where we can help really navigate the holistic landscape of technology available based on what you're looking to accomplish. And we overlay that with really experienced, really tenured folks from a Microsoft perspective that can help, once that technology is defined, help you navigate all of the complexities that we've spoken about today. So I would just like to close before I pass it back over to Pete to talk about the mastermind session by just saying thank you guys so much for joining. I hope you guys learned a little bit about what's going on with Microsoft, and I would absolutely love the opportunity to deep dive into these nuances specifically against each of your organization's positions and kind of help you navigate those renewal cycles. So it was a pleasure. And Pete, I will pass it back over to you.
All right. So hey, before I take control, I'm gonna leave this slide up because it's a good slide. But we got a couple good questions, and
yeah, please.
So the first one I'm gonna kind of audible it here because I think I get what this person's asking. It came in anonymously, but he's asking the kind of the general crowd: has anyone found a reseller or partner who can do invoicing for different departments? So basically, I think he's asking, is there a way to do invoicing per department? And he stressed, or she, it could be a she, having to handle this in multiple is hard. So is there a way to do this?
Yeah, so good question. The answer to that is that it is an evolving answer. And so what I mean by that is when we think about what Microsoft has done within the M365 admin console, within the structure of the MCA, they've introduced this concept of billing accounts. And so certainly as we think about helping organizations navigate the complexities of chargebacks and things like that, specifically as it relates to Azure, there are some great functions that exist, not only from a reporting perspective, but also from an invoicing perspective. So we can deeper dive into that a little bit. With the user-based licensing structures, it's a little bit more complex. But we can, like I said, would be happy to dive into those nuances and the needs of that organization.
Awesome. All right. Next question that came in is, hey, we're an SMB and we'll need and want on-premises servers, SQL,
Sure.
file shares, etc. Will that be able to continue?
Yeah, so absolutely. So Microsoft will continue to, as much as they would like every workload to be in the cloud, right? There are some things that will need to remain in an on-premise world, right? And so absolutely there are modes of transacting that will enable you to do on-premise based licensing. As an example, the CSP motion that we've talked about, that partner assisted motion, will allow for either one-time perpetual license purchases or a 1 or 3 year subscription term. And in the short term, we can continue to look to leverage potentially a legacy volume licensing agreement model as well. So there are a couple of different flavors of paths that we can take there.
Awesome. All right. Another question around SMB. So, hey, we're an SMB. Will we be relegated to self-service?
No, absolutely not. That's one of the good things about the way with which Microsoft is approaching this evolution. They're trying to do so from a customer-centric approach, meaning that the customer will have some level of choice in terms of the path that you want to leverage. Certainly, Alchemy is in a position where we would love to support you as an organization through the CSP model, but you can also mix and match where you want support, where you don't want support. So there's some flexibility in these new purchasing options that will be available.
Awesome. All right. 2 more questions. And audience, if you have any other questions, get them in, because if we can't get to them, we will answer them. So if you have any questions and I can't answer them, we will answer them post-session as well. All right. So the next question that came in, Kyle, is, has Microsoft made the licensing options easier to understand with the changes? Or is it still convoluted, just a different one?
I hope they don't make it too easy, because then I will be out of a job. But we certainly as Microsoft continues to move into a cloud-based model, right, or a user subscription-based model, the nuances are becoming fewer and fewer. Meaning things like if you don't have a license, you can't access the technology, right? Versus in the old world where they would make all of the keys and all of the media available and you could just download willy-nilly and then have to figure out what your license position versus entitlements position transition look like? So I think we will see to some extent some simplification of the kind of product specific licensing terms over time. But I don't think it will ever come to a point in time where Microsoft will be described as simple.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Two more, and then I'll have to kind of go to the end cap. But again, if you have any questions, please get them in and we'll answer them post session. So hopefully an easy one. Will Microsoft Copilot remain as an add-on, or will it be finally included? I added the finally.
Nothing definitive has been announced yet. We are hearing some rumblings around rolling it into either an E5 suite or creating a new suite that includes it. I would say in the short term, it will continue to be a per user per month additional SKU and additional service. But it would not shock me if at some point in the near-ish future, Microsoft announces a shift there. But we will certainly keep everybody posted as we learn more there.
Awesome. And then last question, and the audience, I have a poll up as well. So if you could take a second just to get your answer in on that, and then we'll end cap with the call to action. All right. Final question. Is Premier support still going to be available?
Yeah, so really, really great question again. Premier support has transitioned into what Microsoft has called unified support. That model will continue to exist. However, that will be one of the decision points for organizations as they think about the relationship that you want with Microsoft and the MCA-E versus a CSP. Because in that CSP model, Microsoft's belief is that organization has made a decision that they want to really lean in with that partner from a support perspective. So the partner will actually be the tier one kind of support structure for the technology needs of those organizations. So when we think about unified support, it's yes, but depending on the path that you choose to transact your licenses and the relationship that you want with your partner.
Awesome. Well, all right, folks. Well, that's the final question we have. But if you have any more, please do not hesitate to throw them into the Q&A dialogue. They do get recorded, and we can answer them post-session. All right, final clicks on the poll. End it, and we're going to end cap. And I want to thank everybody for jumping in today. So there is a call to action. It's very simple. And I will send out a link as well. And I promise you this QR code is valid. But if you're a little dodgy on a QR code, I will be sending the PDF as well post-session. But we do offer what we call our Microsoft Licensing Strategy Mastermind session. And what that is, you get some time with Mr. Kyle here and maybe some other members of the Microsoft team to go through and really assess where you stand with your Microsoft licensing. And we put together a whole plan of action, roadmap, and how you can solve your future with Microsoft. So it's definitely worth your time. And, I didn't mention it, but it is complimentary. So it's a great way to get engaged with the Alchemy team, see how we work, see what we do, and get some great time with a great guy who knows Microsoft inside and out. Did I miss anything, Kyle, on that?
No, I think that's it.
All right.
Especially the folks, great guy part.
Well, first, I want to thank Kyle for jumping in today. He's a busy man. He joined us right at the beginning of the year, and he's been running since he joined, and he's a busy guy. So, hey, Kyle, thanks for taking time and joining us on our first In the Lab of 2025. Any final words for the audience today? Just that it was an absolute pleasure joining you guys today, and looking forward to connecting with each of you at some point in the future and helping navigate the complexities of the world that Microsoft has created for us. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining. And audience, keep an eye on your email. We will be doing our next session on April 23rd, and we'll be featuring Okta in some of the changes they just recently announced around their AI and identity protection platform. So you're definitely going to want to check that out. We got Pascal from our consulting group who's going to jump on, as well as a special guest from Okta to help us navigate what they're doing. And by the way, if you haven't noticed, if you sign up for any of our webinars, you become what I like to call an Alchemy Insider, and you get a direct invite to the webinar. And then basically what I do is I put a link in there and you just join. So you don't get emailed from me, or you shouldn't. And it just gets you a little faster track into our webinars. So, and as I always say, thanks for joining and see y'all on the flip side.